President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has made it clear that Sri Lanka's strategic security policy will have an India-first approach, though Colombo remains open to dealing with other key players for economic development, the country's new Foreign Secretary, Jayannath Colombage, has said. Colombage, a retired admiral who commanded Sri Lanka's navy during 2012 to 14 and is perceived as close to Rajapaksa, made the remarks in two interviews to the media. He also said Rajapaksa's administration has adopted a posture of neutrality in its dealings with key powers at the regional and global level, as Sri Lanka cannot become a staging area for any country to do anything against another country, especially India. India has focused on improving ties with Rajapaksa's administration. Prime Minister Modi was the first world leader to congratulate Rajapaksa even before the final results of Sri Lanka's parliamentary elections were declared in August, after his SLPP party took an unassailable lead. In this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze Sri Lanka's India First policy. Joining me on the program today are Alok Bansal, Director, India Foundation; Prabhu Dayal, former ambassador; and Rajesh Sundaram, journalist and author. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Ambassador, I'd like to begin the program with you first. Let's try and understand this new India First policy as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. What do you make of the statements that have come out of Sri Lanka over the last past week or so?
Well, Frank, at the outset, I would like to categorically state that what I make out of these statements is that they vindicate Prime Minister Modi's neighborhood policy in general and his policy towards Sri Lanka in particular. Now, there had been a lot of justified concern in India about the growing closeness between China and Sri Lanka, particularly after the previous Sri Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe had leased Hambantota port to the Chinese for 99 years. Therefore, Prime Minister Modi's government has carefully focused on improving ties with President Rajapaksa's administration and has taken very meaningful steps in this regard. It would be recalled that President Rajapaksa visited India in November last year, just 10 days after becoming president. Now, during the visit, India had announced $400 million as a line of credit to boost infrastructure and development, and also offered another $50 million to fight terrorism and enhance intelligence gathering. Now, you just now mentioned, and this is significant, that Prime Minister Modi was the first world leader to congratulate Rajapaksa for his party's victory in the parliamentary polls earlier this month. Last month, India had announced $400 million as currency swap facility for Sri Lanka under the SAARC framework, and also said that Colombo's request for a bilateral swap facility for $1.1 billion was being considered. So, as I said earlier, it's a vindication of Prime Minister's neighborhood policy and particularly his policy towards Sri Lanka. Very significantly, the Sri Lankan Foreign Secretary, in his press briefings and his TV interview, addressed India's concerns about Hambantota port, which was given by the previous government, he said, to China for 99 years, and he said that Hambantota had been a mistake. He said that, as you pointed out, President Rajapaksa's administration had adopted a posture of neutrality in its dealing with key powers at the regional and global level. Because he said Sri Lanka cannot become a staging area for any country to do anything against another country, especially India. So these remarks of his make very good sense, particularly if the present administration in Sri Lanka, the present government, is to undo the damage done by the previous government. I would also like to point out that while addressing India's security concerns, he said that Sri Lanka cannot depend on any one country for economic development. He said we are open to anyone. And he said that China is one country which is willing to invest and develop. They have the capacity to do it. And he said we have to benefit from it. We have to balance. So in a nutshell, what the Sri Lankan Foreign Secretary said, that his country's strategic policy will have an India first approach, though Colombo would remain open to dealing with other key players for economic development. This is how I would take it, and this is my initial reaction.
Okay, all right. Alok Bansal, let me bring you to the picture now. The ambassador has very beautifully elaborated how things have changed since November of 2019 to August of 2020 and what India has done and how India has helped Sri Lanka as well. But if you go back in history, when Mahinda Rajapaksa was the president, we saw that Sri Lanka had taken a very firm pro-China stand. What has led to the change? Is there something that Sri Lanka has realized over these few past years?
I think it's prudent to go back into history and have a look. We need to understand that Mahinda Rajapaksa's victory over LTT was primarily facilitated with India's cooperation. But after promising 13th Amendment plus during the war, after the war, obviously, he went back and he felt that his reliance on India had probably reduced. And that is when we started seeing far more autocratic tendencies at that point of time. And I think the transformation from Mahinda Rajapaksa presidency to Maitripala Sirisena was primarily facilitated because of India's cajoling, bringing the diverse political groups together. And I think after that, what Sri Lanka has realized, which of course even Mahinda had realized earlier, that as far as Sri Lanka is concerned, India will always be the first. And in fact, Mahinda had earlier said that India is a relative, whereas China is a friend. And in South Asian context, relatives are for keeps. Friends may come and go. Please understand that. So that has been the case. Now, having said that, when this government came to power, initially when Gotabaya Rajapaksa won the election, there was some concerns because the previous government was seen as very pro-India. In fact, because India had a role in bringing that government to power probably. So I think after that, government of India has moved very fast, and I think we have mended bridges with both Gotabaya as well as Mahinda Rajapaksa. Yesterday, I think Indian High Commissioner hosted a dinner where 19 cabinet ministers attended, which by itself, including 2 members of the Rajapaksa family, Namal and Cham, which is a phenomenal thing. And what we need to understand is, as far as the Foreign Secretary Admiral Jainath Colombage is concerned, we have had the good fortune of hosting him 2 or 3 times in our foundation for our events. In fact, a former naval officer like me, he has a very, very practical understanding of what the security scenario is. And please understand, as far as India and Sri Lanka is concerned, our defense cooperation has been far greater than the cooperation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs level. Because please understand, the civil war would not have been won without an active cooperation with the security forces of the 2 countries. So anybody who is a naval officer, who is a defense officer, has had phenomenal interaction with Indian security forces. Like Admiral Colombage itself, he has actually done a lot of his training in India, has been coming to India off and on, has a very, very close relationship with Indian authorities, Indian people, and of course is extremely close to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who was defense secretary when the civil war was going on, and a very, very powerful man. And he also has very good equation with Admiral Colombage, who was that time the chief of the Navy, Sri Lankan Navy. So there is a good equation. When Admiral Colombage said that India first, he meant it. And subsequently, what we have seen is this dinner diplomacy. We have seen Indian Army and Sri Lankan Army have had webinar. We have had communications. So we are going to have a communication. But please understand, Sri Lanka is a sovereign country. It has every right to pursue its economic growth by getting assistance from different countries. And China at this point of time is flush with funds. Let's be frank that the largest foreign exchange reserves at this point of time in the world are held by People's Republic of China. So their capacity to invest is phenomenal. And so that's where it is. So China would probably invest, but as they have made it very clear that nothing that China does would have an adversarial impact on India's security and India's national interests. So that is what we need to understand. And I think this is, from our point of view, an excellent thing. We and Sri Lanka, India and Sri Lanka have had very good relations in the past, and we would like to continue it. Because even today, please understand, before the pandemic hit, the largest number of tourists visiting Sri Lanka were Indians. Sri Lankans of every ethnicity, every religion come to India for pilgrimage, education, medical facilities. So India and Sri Lanka ties, of course, are so old that they actually disappear into the mists of history, as Professor G.L. Paris, the former foreign minister, had once said. So we have a very, very extremely close relationship, and I think these statements emanating from Colombo are extremely reassuring to the Indian government and Indian people, that the close relationship, the close bonds that we have shared will continue. This process will continue in days to come.
Okay, all right, that's a good thing, and of course, it is indeed really reassuring as far as we are concerned, and as far as the subcontinent is concerned. It's good to see India and Sri Lanka now putting aside differences and looking ahead and trying to deal with all of these issues together. All right, Rajesh Sundaram, let me come across to you now, and let's talk about another aspect. Do you believe at some level the Indian community and the persons of Indian origin too have had some kind of an impact in bringing the Rajapaksa administration and the Modi administration closer together?
Well, the Rajapaksa family and the Rajapaksa brothers aren't really allies for India in any sense. Historically, we know which political party has been, more favoring towards the Chinese and which ones have helped the Indians. Of course, this is the honeymoon period. They're making a lot of noises which are very reassuring. It is a country which has been hit by the pandemic. The economy has taken a hit, and clearly they would want Indian money as much as they would want the Chinese money. And like the panelists before me said, China has more money to offer, has more infrastructural help to offer at this time. And it's really very early days to see what it is. If you see the last time the Rajapaksas were in power, they had India in a very anxious situation. You had Chinese Navy ships who were in their waters. You had the Hambantota port, which was given out on lease. They've learned a few lessons, but nothing that is coming out of the policymakers right now gives us any reason to be reassured. They say that the Sri Lankans going forward will keep 51% equity in whatever new strategic ventures that come about. But is that reassuring for India? Absolutely not, because if you have a 49% stake held by a Chinese company in a strategic installation in Sri Lanka, that is no reason for India to be happy. These are, for want of any other word, wily politicians who have a Sinhala chauvinist core in their politics, and clearly they are people who would, on the face of it, have a lot of diplomacy there. But it would make sense for India to be extremely cautious over the next few years till these brothers are in power. And of course, they have the mandate. They have a big mandate to be there, and it does make sense to be cautious. What helps us, of course, is that there is a lot of public opinion against a Chinese domination on the economy, or a Chinese attempt at taking sovereign institutions and strategic ports, for instance. There's a lot of public outcry about that. So that is something in a democracy that could keep them under check. But the many times that I've gone and met Gotabaya Rajapaksa when he was the defense secretary and I was a visiting journalist, what I saw first was all the Chinese military hardware models that were kept on the conference room that he had there. So everything about the Gotabaya Rajapaksa brothers, of course, India did play a role during the final stages of the civil war, but so did Pakistan. They sent their pilots to the area. The Chinese were very much active. At that time, we had a policy where we said that we will not help them militarily directly, but in a defensive way. There were other countries which went out there and helped them militarily, which helped them in a much bigger way in defeating or getting them the victory in the civil conflict that they had at that time.
Okay, points taken. Ambassador, I'm just going to come to you in a bit. I saw Captain Balsal shaking his head. Let me get a quick reaction from him and then I'll come to you. Go ahead, Captain Bansal.
And nothing. I just have a slight divergence of opinion, and that I think I'd like to clarify. I think anybody in Sri Lanka's security forces realizes that while many other countries would have helped them win the civil war, it was India which was critical and crucial in their victory as far as the civil war is concerned. Without Indian cooperation, that victory was unachievable, and I think everybody in Sri Lanka understands. The second point which I want to say is that Gotabaya Rajapaksa is not a typical politician, unlike Mahinda Rajapaksa. Gota, of course, is the president today, but he is not a typical politician. He is a far more a blunt and a frank person than Mahinda would be. Mahinda is, of course, far more because he has been in politics for decades and knows the nuances very well. So I think doubting unnecessarily somebody's utterances may not be prudent to my mind. I think there were times, of course, there is no doubt after the civil war when we had certain differences with the regime that time. But I think once bitten, twice shy, I think both the countries know that it is in their interest to mutually cooperate. And I think the two countries need each other at this point of time. So I feel whatever be the apprehensions, I think the signs are good, the signs are bright, and I think both the sides have taken initiative to normalize the relations, to make sure that the good relations continue between the two countries. We were amongst the first. Prime Minister Modi was the first leader to congratulate him. Gotabaya was also first to come to India. And now again, it is all said and done. To a very great extent, the policies are made by officials. And I think the selection of Columbage as the foreign secretary is a very, very right step. I think, and to that extent, I think I am optimistic as far as the relations are concerned.
Okay, all right. Ambassador, let's look ahead and let's look at, what is it that Sri Lanka and India really need to do going forward? How do we build on the goodwill that we have built over the last 10 months or so? You spoke about how, we've extended a line of credit, how we did the currency swap deal. India has offered $50 million to fight terrorism in Sri Lanka as well. And, as far as intelligence gathering is concerned. So what are the other areas of cooperation? I think we've decided to engage more extensively and elaborately on education and health as well. So what are the other sectors, and how do you believe that we can take this relationship up a notch?
Well, first of all, let me state that I share the views expressed by Captain Alok Bansal. It is true that the Rajapaksa family had taken a very hardline stand towards India earlier, and in fact had appeared to be antithetical to our interests. But then, as the old saying goes, there are no permanent friends, there are no permanent enemies, there are only permanent interests. And I think both the Rajapaksa brothers realize that a closer relationship with India is necessary for Sri Lanka's good. And in particular, they are worried about the sort of dominance which the Chinese tend to exercise when they have control over any strategic asset. Now, the Hambantota port is a strategic asset. And the fact that the Sri Lankan Foreign Secretary categorically said that Hambantota was a mistake is something that shows that during our talks with the Sri Lankans, we have been able to correctly convey our security concerns, our strategic concerns, and they share these. And that is why, significantly, they have said that Sri Lanka will adopt a posture of neutrality in its dealing with key powers at the regional and global level, which means that they will not be doing the sort of thing which led to Hambantota. Now, what is the way forward? I think the way forward is for more areas of cooperation to be chalked out. India is in position to help Sri Lanka in a variety of ways, and I think that the government is actively engaged with the Sri Lankan side in this regard. The particular areas which need to be worked on are those which the two sides will have to mutually discuss. It's not that we can just dump something down on Sri Lanka. I think they have to first specify what their needs are, and we have to see to what extent we can be partners in this regard. But certainly, the path for economic cooperation between the two sides is very, very clear. India and Sri Lanka can do so much together in the areas of industry, trade, education, forestry development, environment, you name it. And while there will be ups and downs, certainly, as there are indeed in any relationship between neighbors, but we should be prepared to go the extra mile to alleviate Sri Lanka's concerns, because let us not forget, we are a very large neighbor of theirs. They are tiny in comparison, and at the same time, they are being courted by other powers. The Chinese would go out of the way to befriend the Sri Lankans and do things which would be antithetical to our security and strategic interests. So, keeping in mind our strategic interests, we should do whatever possible to benefit Sri Lanka, because as a very large number, a very large neighbor, we can easily do that. I think the two governments are engaged, and I do not want to prejudge what the nature of this cooperation will be.
Absolutely. All right. So, Rajesh Sundaram, looking forward now, what should our key focus areas be? What do India and Sri Lanka need to focus on, work on, say, in the short term and in the long term?
I think the immediate short term would be about the economy and cooperation when it comes to the COVID-19 situation, on how Sri Lanka, of course, has had a lot of success in being able to limit the fatality rate as well as the infection rate of the disease. But what it has not been able to mitigate is the kind of impact that has had on its economy, especially tourism is mainstay. So clearly, I think cooperation in that and getting them out of this current crisis is something that they would be looking forward to. Also, I think India should engage with other strategic partners of Sri Lanka, like Japan, for instance, who also have similar interests as ours, to ensure that the Chinese lure for Sri Lanka is brought down as much as possible. I think there should be a joint strategy with the other Sri Lankan partners to ensure that India's strategic interests are safeguarded, because as of now, whatever messages have come from Sri Lanka doesn't really guarantee that with China, and we know the intentions of China right now at the borders, the kind of aggression with which India should go out there diplomatically to counter this in Sri Lanka, in countries like in India, in other countries in the neighborhood, isn't really coming through right now. There has to be a greater aggression to veer Sri Lanka away from the Chinese sphere of influence, as it were. So clearly, I think in helping Sri Lanka coming out of this economic crisis, the post-pandemic crisis, would go a long way in strengthening these bonds. Also, to work with other strategic partners would be something which would be in India's diplomatic interest as well.
All right. Time to get closing comments from all my panelists now with the best way forward. Alok Bansal, are there any areas of the relationship that needs special attention, that needs to be trudged carefully?
See, I have no doubts that the way forward is interesting. We have a lot of avenues, opportunities, and as I said, large number of Indians are willing to go to Sri Lanka. I think one factor which we need to look at it and which we need to do is, of course, as far as issues which we need to tread carefully, we have the issue of autonomy, because 13th Amendment still remains on the statute. We would want it that the genuine aspirations of the Tamil minority are met, howsoever difficult they may be. But on the economic front, I have been advocating a bridge, land bridge between Talai Mannar and Dhanushkoti, which is extremely doable at much lesser cost than the pathetic Setu Samudram project, which somebody brought in at some stage. And today a large number of Indians want to visit Sri Lanka, a large number of Sri Lankans want to come to India. The bridge would pay for its cost within 3 years itself by the movement of goods and people. So that would be a big step if we could actually bring about greater economic integration. We have already power sharing agreements, etc. We need to have a common grid. We could have a grid connectivity, which we could probably go in. Once we have our land bridge, we could go in for grid connectivity. Other issues are there. Of course, Langa IOC farm is there, that tank farm is there, huge farm, which is of course a issue which has remained for a very long time. Langa IOC has not been able to utilize it or fully use it. It's a big thing, because at a time when India is looking at building up strategic reserves, you have a huge reservoir which is available to us, which has been granted to you by agreement. We have not been able to utilize. So these are the factors which we can take in. And in fact, as I said, otherwise I feel in near future we'll have very good relations. We need to collaborate, and I think collaboration has already started. I think as far as pandemic is concerned, Indian Army, as you know, had a webinar with Sri Lankan medical services, etc., where we try to share our expertise as far as handling of pandemic is concerned. And I think the next phase of the collaboration will, of course, be led by security forces, and of course other angles also. Economic development is there, economic investments will go ahead, and as India grows, Sri Lanka would want to hitch on to the Indian bandwagon, because the first free trade area that we have signed actually was with Sri Lanka. So whatever we do with Sri Lanka can be replicated with other neighbors in times to come.
Absolutely. Ambassador, best way forward?
Well, the best way forward would be to keep adjusting our policy as per the needs of the situation. One issue which could become thorny from time to time is the Tamil autonomy question, as Captain Bansal pointed out. And this could raise its head both in Indian domestic politics and in the situation in Sri Lanka. So we will have to see how the two countries can manage this situation. It is not going to be easy, because the Tamil question in Sri Lanka is extremely complicated. But at the same time, I'm happy that the Sri Lankans have shown sensitivity to our security and strategic concerns, and they have said that in this regard, Sri Lanka will always have an India first approach. And they have categorically said that means Sri Lanka will not do anything harmful to India's security interests, period. Now, that is a very emphatic way of conveying that they are aware of our concerns, they are sensitive to our concerns, and I think in this background it should be possible to work closely together. But as I said, there could be danger, there could be pitfalls, and certainly the Tamil issue is one. The Chinese negative role in the entire region is another. The Pakistanis could be up to mischief too. So there could be ups and downs, but by and large, I think the stage is set for the two governments to work closely together for the mutual benefit of one another.
Absolutely. All right, Rajesh Sundaram, close the show for us with your quick concluding remarks.
Well, I think the ethnic Tamil issue is an issue which has been, has clearly fallen off the agenda between India and Sri Lanka. And the Sri Lankans really don't care, because after the full military victory, the legitimate political aspirations and offering rights to the Tamil people has really fallen off the agenda for them. And there is no great push from the Indian side for this as well. So, I mean, if you look at what has happened right now, they have the Northern Provincial Council, which does not even have the rights of a municipality in India.
Points taken. All right. On that note, then, I'll have to call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is India has carefully focused on improving ties with Sri Lanka and the Rajapaksa administration. Over the last 10 months, India has extended a $400 million line of